Your hands won't stop shaking. The Danbury shakes have taken hold, and your teeth are already loosening in their sockets. It's 1890 in the heart of London, and the smog-choked air outside is a luxury compared to the toxic clouds of mercury vapor you're inhaling right now. You are currently brushing a lethal cocktail of nitrate of mercury onto a raw rabbit pelt, a process known as carroting, and every single breath is bringing you one step closer to the lunatic asylum. But look at the finished product on the bench. It's a masterpiece, a silk-lined, perfectly shaped felt top hat fit for a duke. This is the brutal paradox of the late Victorian hatter. You are the primary architect of British elegance, yet you are literally rotting from the inside out to maintain it. Most people believe the Mad Hatter is nothing more than a whimsical character from a Lewis Carroll novel. They are dead wrong. It was a gruesome daily medical reality for thousands of laborers trapped in the cramped workshops of the East End. But the poison was only the beginning. Between the 14-hour shifts in windowless rooms, the starvation wages that barely covered a bowl of watery gruel, and a social hierarchy that viewed your life as entirely expendable, the 1890s was a gauntlet of survival. How did these artisans produce such refined beauty while battling a slow-motion execution? How did the trade survive when its workers were losing their minds and their lives by age 30? We are dissecting a death sentence disguised as a fashion staple. Step into the steam and the shadows. We are going inside the workshop to see exactly how a Victorian hat was made, and why, for the man making it, the true price of the craft was always his sanity. To understand the hatter's plight, you have to understand the workshop. Picture a room no larger than a modern studio apartment, crammed with 12 grown men. The windows are nailed shut, not to keep the cold out, but to keep the delicate fur fibers from blowing away. The air is thick, a gray soup of rabbit hair and chemical steam. Your lungs are essentially becoming felted from the inside out before the mercury even touches your bloodstream. You start your day before the sun even touches the Thames. Your primary tool is the hatter's bow, a 7-foot-long wooden instrument that looks like something out of a medieval orchestra. You pluck the string, using the vibration to separate the fine underfur from the coarse guard hairs. It's rhythmic, it's hypnotic, and it's lethal. Every snap of that string sends a fresh cloud of mercury-soaked dust directly into your nostrils. By noon, the shakes usually kick in. It starts as a flutter in your eyelids, then a twitch in your fingers. You try to grip your shears, but your hand betrays you. This isn't just physical exhaustion. The mercury is attacking your central nervous system, peeling away the insulation of your nerves like a wire being stripped bare. But in 1890, there's no workers' compensation. There's no sick leave. If you stop bowing, your family doesn't eat. You are a piece worker, a human cog in a machine that values the felt far more than the flesh. The social stigma is perhaps worse than the physical pain. Because mercury poisoning mimics the symptoms of extreme alcoholism and various forms of lunacy, the public views you with a mix of pity and disgust. You're the Mad Hatter, a punchline for the upper classes. You stumble in the street because your balance is gone, and the Victorian gentleman in his polished carriage looks down and sees a drunkard, not a dying craftsman. You are invisible, even as you provide the very symbol of his status. We often think of the Industrial Revolution in terms of massive steel mills and coal mines, but the Hatter's workshop was a different kind of hell, a silent, chemical one. It was a trade built on the felt, the transformation of loose fur into a tough, water-resistant fabric. To get that perfect consistency, you have to boil the fur in acidified water, over and over. The steam rises, carrying the nitrate of mercury directly to your brain. You are literally boiling your mind to make a brim. The irony is suffocating. You are creating an object of supreme order, a rigid, black, dignified top hat, while your internal world is collapsing into chaos. Your teeth begin to turn a blackened, necrotic gray. Your gums bleed. You develop a hatter's peel, where the skin on your hands becomes thick and calloused, yet strangely fragile. You are becoming a monster to create a masterpiece. But here is the twist you didn't see coming. We've been focusing on the man in the workshop, the laborer sacrificing his sanity for a few shillings a week. We assume the tragedy ends at the workshop door once the hat is boxed and shipped to a high-end boutique in Mayfair. We assume the poison was the hatter's burden alone. Actually, the poison didn't stay in the workshop. When that duke or earl placed that perfect hat on his head, he wasn't just wearing a fashion statement. He was strapping a chemical delivery system directly to his temples. The duke's silk lining isn't a barrier, it's a wick. As he strolls through St. James's Park, the heat from his scalp begins to warm the felt. The nitrate of mercury trapped in those fibers reacts. It doesn't just sit there, it off-gasses. Every bead of sweat on his forehead becomes a solvent, pulling the poison through the silk and directly into his pores. The symbol of his status is literally a chemical delivery system strapped to his brain. But here is the chilling part. The elite never saw it coming because they didn't want to look. If a duke started acting eccentric, suffering from sudden tremors or unprovoked fits of rage, his doctor called it nervous exhaustion. He was prescribed a trip to the seaside. If you, the hatter, showed those same symptoms, you were kicked into the gutter as a hopeless alcoholic. The mercury didn't care about your bank account, but the law did. This double standard kept the factories humming and the mercury flowing. But the workshop floor was about to get much, much hotter. Move deeper into the back room. This is the plank. This is where the felt is finalized. You're standing around a massive open vat of boiling water spiked with sulfuric acid. The steam is so thick you can't see the man standing 2 feet away. You take the semi-formed hat and plunge your bare hands into the scalding liquid, rolling the felt over and over to shrink it. Your skin isn't just burning, it's absorbing a concentrated dose of nitrate. By mid-afternoon, the hatter's peel isn't just a callus anymore. Your skin begins to slough off in gray, waxy sheets. You've achieved the perfect density for the hat, but your own body is losing its structural integrity. You'd think the physical pain would be the breaking point. It's not. The real horror of the 1890s workshop was the hatter's mood. Mercury doesn't just scramble your nerves, it rewires your personality. You become pathologically shy. You're hit with waves of intense, irrational fear. If a stranger looks at you on the street, you might burst into tears or fly into a violent, uncontrollable rage. You aren't just losing your hands, you're losing your soul. You start to suspect your fellow workers are whispering about you. You think the foreman is poisoning your gruel. Paranoia becomes your only constant companion. This is the madness Lewis Carroll played for laughs, but in the East End, it was a waking nightmare. You are a prisoner inside a brain that is literally dissolving, and yet you can't walk away, because the industry has a financial chokehold on you that's just as tight as the chemical one. Most hatters in 1890 are on the piece. You don't get a salary. You get paid for every finished unit. If your hands shake too much to trim a brim, you don't get paid. If you take a day off to let your lungs clear, you fall behind on your slop work debt. The workshop owners often run the boarding houses too. If you don't work, you don't just starve, you're homeless. The cycle is absolute. You drink to numb the tremors, which only accelerates the dehydration and the poisoning. You pawn your Sunday coat to buy nerve tonics that are usually just colored water and opium. You are spiraling toward a very specific, very lonely end. Most hatters don't make it to 40. By 35, you're a ghost, a man with no teeth, no balance, and a mind filled with terrifying hallucinations. But as your world narrows down to the steam and the shakes, the fashion industry is already moving on. The top hat is reaching its peak, the demand is skyrocketing, and the manufacturers have discovered a way to make the process even faster, even more efficient, and infinitely more lethal. They weren't just using mercury anymore. They were about to introduce a new element into the workshop that would turn the Mad Hatter from a trade hazard into an urban epidemic. You think you know how the story ends. You think the Hatter just dies in an asylum and the Duke goes on his way. You're wrong. The poison was about to jump the fence from the workshop to the very water London drank. The true scale of the Victorian hat trade wasn't measured in headwear. It was measured in the soil of the city itself. And the most dangerous part of the hat wasn't the mercury. It was the secret ingredient they used to make it shine. That secret ingredient, the black gold that made those 1890s hats gleam under London's gas lamps, was actually a widespread death sentence. To achieve that flawless shine, the hatter had to use a mixture of red shellac dissolved in highly concentrated industrial alcohol, blended with lead acetate and copper sulfate. But here's the tragedy. As manufacturing workshops sprang up like mushrooms across the East End, tons of wastewater laced with mercury, lead, and sulfuric acid didn't just vanish into thin air. It was dumped straight into open gutters, seeping through rotting brickwork and flowing directly into the city's groundwater. You see, the poison didn't stop at the hatter's fingertips or the Duke's temples. It crept into every sip of water that impoverished children drank on the sidewalks. It settled into the pitch-black mud of the River Thames, where the very breath of the Industrial Revolution was choking out life. The shadow of the top hat didn't just stretch across elegant boulevards. It blanketed London's entire ecosystem like a chemical fog. When we look at a top hat in a museum display case today, we usually only see the refinement of a bygone era. But the core truth is that every stitch, every fiber of that smooth felt was molded from the disintegration of a human being. The Mad Hatter is not a fictional character stepping out of Lewis Carroll's pages. It is the silent scream of thousands of artisans imprisoned in their own bodies. They traded their sanity for the elegance of others. They sacrificed their nervous systems so the world could have a symbol of order and discipline. This is the answer to the paradox of Victorian elegance. The more magnificent the beauty, the deeper the underlying rot. The hat was not just a fashion accessory, it was a sacrificial lamb. It stands as a testament to an era where human value was weighed against machine efficiency and the sheen of felt. The hatter, with his shaking hands and blackened, falling teeth, was a martyr of modern industry, someone who used his own madness to weave a facade of sanity for an entire empire. Their sacrifices were never inscribed on stone monuments, but they exist in every scar of industrial history. As the Mercury era closed, what remained was a costly lesson about the price of vanity. We realized that true civilization doesn't lie in the hat upon a gentleman's head, but in how society treats the hands that made it. The ghosts in those steam-choked workshops of 1890 can finally find peace when the secret of their madness is exposed, not as a joke, but as a grand tragedy of human perseverance against the cruelty of their time. Stepping out of the East End fog, we carry with us not just the image of a beautiful hat, but an awakening about the soul hidden behind inanimate objects. It is a painful beauty, a brilliance extracted from the darkness, and an eternal reminder, behind every symbol of luxury, there is a heart that once beat, a mind that once struggled, and a price that was never cheap. The cost of vanity didn't stop at the mercury-soaked felt of 1890. History is inherently a massive graveyard of truths, buried beneath the glitzy veneer of civilization. If today, the story of these mad artisans has changed how you view a museum exhibit, then that is just the starting point of our journey to decode humanity's hidden corners. We are living in a world built on similar paradoxes, where the greatest inventions sometimes carry the most disastrous curses that the flow of time has carelessly erased. Here, we don't just recount the past, we dissect it to reclaim the voices of those forgotten in the grind of industry and greed. Choosing to join us by hitting the subscribe button isn't just about following a content channel. It's a shared commitment to peel back the layers of fog, obscuring the truth. Don't let those chemical fogs, or painful beauties, continue to fade into nothingness. Keep your eyes wide open to these symbols of luxury, so that whenever you look at an inanimate object, you will see the heartbeat and the struggle behind it. Behind every brilliance is a darkness that needs to be named. Click that subscribe icon right now, so you don't miss our next historical dissection, where we will dive deep together into untold corners where history isn't just dry numbers, but breath, blood, and the most naked truths about the human journey. The quest to decode the darkest secrets still lies ahead, and your presence is the very fuel ensuring these truths are never forgotten again.